Welcome to the Non-Human and AI Identity podcast. By humans, for humans, no AI-generated content. Hi, I'm Lalit Choda, founder of the Non-Human Identity Management Group. On this brand new podcast show, I'll be hosting the leading voices shaping the future of non-human and agentic AI identity. We will also be sharing thought leadership insights from the latest events, including webinars, conferences, summits, and workshops focused on identity management and security. We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the Non-Human and AI Identity podcast. I'm excited to have Dwayne McDaniel, developer advocate from GitGuardian, join us for this episode. Dwayne, why don't you just give a brief intro, explain what a developer advocate is, and maybe share some insights people may not know about you.
Oh, thanks very much, Lalit, for having me on the show. I'm happy to be a guest on this program. Happy to be a guest of Mr NHI. I'm Dwayne McDaniel, developer advocate at GitGuardian. Developer advocacy is kind of the last generalist, in my opinion, in the company. We work for various people. I work for marketing personally, but I don't serve just marketing. I am the conduit for internal conversations leaving the company, getting our messaging out there, and also the conduit for the conversations I'm having with the community coming back into the company. So I go to a lot of conferences. I have a lot of conversations online. I talk to a lot of people in person, and I kind of amalgamate ideas. I see, well, we need a video for this. It would help people along. I see my entire job as five very simple words: help people figure stuff out. If I'm doing that, I feel I'm being successful. If I am just buried under research, if I can't turn that into something useful, then I'm not super happy. So that's how I see the role. That gets interpreted by a lot of different people in different ways. And then there are a lot of different kinds of developer advocates. Some live in code, some just produce example code day in, day out. Some people are helping internal platform teams communicate to their own developers at the large enough organizations. But I'm more on the evangelist side. I love being out in the community, giving talks, spreading ideas, and having big, wide conversations. And that's what I do at GitGuardian. I'm speak at a lot of conferences a year. I write a lot of blog posts. I make a lot of videos. And just a quick shameless plug, I have my own podcast where I bring on people and have deep conversations about what they're into and how they got into security. And I've learned so much from my guests, and I hope my audience has as well.
Yeah, and I was fortunate enough to be invited by yourself last January, I remember, to talk about NHIs. Maybe I've just realized that you described your role. I think my role is pretty similar, actually. So maybe it's now Mr. NHI advocate. Um, all right, look, before we get started in terms of the main topic where we're going to talk about Secrets Sprawl, I want to put you on the spot on Mr. NHI's Human Identity in the Hot Seat quiz, where I'm going to fire 10 machine speed questions on IAM, non-human and AI identities. So let's go. Are orgs taking NHI risks seriously enough?
They're taking it as seriously as anything else in the OWASP top 10, so no.
Great. Is IAM for AI more important than AI for IAM?
If we don't have identity, then the whole thing falls apart. So I think IAM is more important in general than how fast we're doing it.
Are we seeing more breaches with AI?
Oh, absolutely. We've never been able to attack this fast. We've also never been able to defend this fast, but just the volume of attacks has gone up.
Are organizations putting time to market ahead of security controls for AI agents?
They wouldn't be a business if they didn't. That's the nature of business. If we're just focused on security and securing everything down, then you're not getting new customers, and market's very important.
Great answer. Does agentic AI security equal NHI security?
Given that agents aren't human, yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Is MCP a good thing for the industry?
I, I think other protocols like SSH and Telnet are vitally important as well, but it's just another protocol for getting data from point A to point B. It's the one we settled on. It was the first one that came up, but that's how the internet's always worked. The first thing that works, let's just do that.
Thanks. Do you personally use AI agents?
Yes, I don't think person on the internet today doesn't, whether you consciously realize that or not. At some level, you're using an agent.
Okay. Will the AI agent digital workforce lead to mass unemployment?
This is a this is the hardest question I think you've asked today, and I don't know is my actual honest answer. The same way that they used to smash the looms because it would put the weavers out of work, and the same way we were worried that dictation machines would put personal assistants out of work. Things will change. We adapt to anything. That's one of the great features of humanity is we're ultimately adaptable. So
Hmm.
unemployed, I think we're going to see a shift in how we handle economic policies, but I don't know what that looks like.
Okay. Nine might feel like a repeat of an earlier question, but should agentic AI identities be treated separately to non-human identities?
The actual mechanisms, the processes running on processors, no. The use cases and how we think of where the identity or where the transaction boundaries are does need to be treated a little bit different when you have things like blended identities. But I don't think fundamentally how we implement these things is any different.
Great. And finally, are you a fan of vibe coding?
For non-critical systems, absolutely. A good example, I rebuilt my website as flat HTML. Took me 15 minutes. It looks beautiful. It's completely ADA compliant. It's got 100% on Lighthouse, and it saved me 2 hours of work, but it's all flat files that are publicly available on GitHub. So I'm not worried about anybody hacking that. If I had customer data, I'd be a lot more weary.
Perfect. All right. I hope you enjoyed that, Dwayne. Very revealing, and it's a good segue, in particular, that last question on our topic today. So, look, today we're going to talk about the growing problem of secret sprawl. I know this is something that you know very, very well. Now, look, some people might say, look, we've heard this story before, secret sprawl. Why are we discussing it on this amazing new podcast? But clearly AI is impacting the secret sprawl problem, challenge in both a good and a bad way. Look, like yourself, this is a topic that's very close to my heart. I talk about it all the time. But why don't you start and explain to the audience what is secret sprawl?
Secrets can only be in one of two states, where they're supposed to be and where they're not supposed to be. I firmly believe this. Where they're supposed to be is either non-existent because you got rid of them, or safely encrypted at rest and then called programmatically at runtime into the application. That's called a vault. That's called a secret manager. There's a lot of ways to approach this, but encrypted, unencrypted just when used, and if you architect it properly, dumped immediately. The places where they're not supposed to be are human readable plain text. If you can read it, so can an attacker. That's the very basic definition, in my opinion, of secret sprawl. Anytime you see a secret not where it's supposed to be, therefore it has sprawled. Now that could be in code, that could be in your messaging systems, that could be in tickets, that could be in secrets.txt on your laptop, as we saw with a lot of recent attacks attacking the developer environments themselves. We know env files exist that contain these secrets. If you can invoke the env file on the machine, well, so can something else that can manipulate your machine. And well, that's what we're giving AI the power to do now.
Okay, well, thanks, Dwayne, for that explanation. Yeah, let's start with the elephant in the room, 23.77 million secrets. Do you want to share some background, Dwayne, on this stat from your phenomenal State of Secrets Pro report that you published in 2025?
Yes, absolutely. So, for those of you who don't know us, GitGuardian is a company kind of obsessed with solving the secret sprawl problem. So, ever since 2018, we have looked at every new commit that hits GitHub public, and you can too if you want, api.github.com/events. It's a fire hose. Over a billion things a year come through there. And we scan every new commit to see if it does contain a secret. If it does, we then and there email the committer. If you're listening to this, there's a good chance you've gotten one of these from us. It says, "Hey, you did this in public. Not a good idea." We call that our Good Samaritan program,
Hmm.
and that's part of why we make our product free for teams under 25 and for individual devs because we just want everybody to stay safe. Uh, But we collect stats on this, and year over year, we have watched this go up. The first report that I saw before I joined the company was 2.5 million secrets leaked, and that was the 2020 report, which means in the year 2019, they observed with very high degree of certainty, 2.5 million secrets get added to GitHub just in the calendar year 2019. Uh, in the 2025 report, which looked just at calendar year 2024, it was 24.77 million hard-coded secrets. So order of magnitude up from just a handful of years ago. Uh, we think there's a lot of reasons for this, but the largest driver is we have never built this much stuff this fast, and there's never been this many people contributing code in the history of the planet. This is all the numbers from like GitHub's reports. There's just never been this many developers. So it kind of makes sense. New developers will keep making mistakes, but it's not just new developers. That same report, 15% of all commit authors total across the platform will do that or did this once a year. Or did that in the year 2024. That's not projective. That's literally just the stats. So that's where that number comes from,
shocking,
you said.
shocking. 15% of all developers were checking in secrets in public repos, let alone then the story of private repos. Look, I'll also share a stat. Some people may know, but Mr NHI, his previous life was a hands-on practitioner running NHI programs at various financial institutions. We started a huge NHI program. One of those orgs about 5-6 years ago, we started doing some secret scanning, and the first time we scanned our kind of internal repos, we found over a million leaks. So that was really an eye-opener for not just me, but most people in the organization. So yes, look, clearly you found 23.77 million last year in public, but I'm sure there's billions of secrets out there in the wild and internally within repos. So a massive, massive industry problem.
We wish we could see into all private repos. We wish everyone would just connect us up and let us help them. But from what we do know from customers, again, the same report, you can download it through Tor if you want to. Just look up the State of Secrets Sprawl report, or hopefully provide a link for them here, Elite. But we know the problem is 8 times worse on average inside of an enterprise. They hook up a repo to us. There's a 35% chance that contains at least one hard-coded credential. So it is orders of magnitude larger. We think there's a lot of reasons for that. It's that false sense of security. I remember the old days where the perimeter literally meant you had to get into the server room and plug an Ethernet cable, or back then Cat5, into that box, and that's how you networked. There was no other way to attack that machine. Now everything is got a URL, a URI, some way to address it. Otherwise, why would you have it inside of your application? So the false sense of security that it's behind a private wall, that's gone. That is no longer. We have to get that out of our heads.
Okay. Look, before we then get into kind of the AI angle and how that's impacting secret sprawl in either a positive or negative way, are there any other key insights from the report that you want to call out? I guess because you've been doing this for multiple years, I guess you can see secrets that are still there, that you maybe reported in prior years. Any insights on that side of the story?
Yeah, there's a horrifying one and one that kind of makes sense, but it's still a little bit surprising. At least the actual breakdown of the numbers. The one that's the most horrifying is that if a secret is valid when found in public, it has a tendency to stay valid in public. For the first time ever, we went back and looked at secrets we found to be valid in previous reports. So in 2022, we had found a number of valid secrets. We took a subset of that, 11,000, I think 700. You'd have to read the report for exact number, but over 11,000 secrets that had found to be valid, meaning they worked. They returned a 200 or returned a ACK that said, hey, I still work. We reran the same validation, the exact same validation engine on it in beginning of 2025, and almost 70% came back as still valid. If you looked at the 2023, we did like, okay, is this real? So 2023, we ran that and it was a higher percentage. That's the horrifying fact. We don't just have a leak problem. It is, we don't know what to do to remediate that at scale. And we're so scared of tearing down the infrastructure. We're so scared of downtime. We're so scared of touching the giant, weird set of building blocks we made that are our customer facing apps that, well, let's just let it run. What's the worst that can happen? And I think that's the mentality a lot of people have when they are told, hey, you have a critical leak here. And they're like, yeah, but it hasn't been a problem so far. That's the horrifying part of that. Now, there's a lot other reasons you might not rotate, might not go to anything vital, and maybe you just don't care that people got into your database full of cats. I don't know. But that number was staggering to us, that 70%.
Yeah.
The non-horrifying number that it makes sense when you hear it is the number of secrets or in the type of secrets that get leaked into other systems. So we're talking in the report, we specifically looked at Jira, Slack, and Confluence. And the winner of that was Jira. Like there are far more secrets leaked into Jira than there are into Slack. There's still a lot leaked into Slack. I don't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head or the percentages, but what stood out to us wasn't that people do this. Of course, people do this. How many times have you ever received a Slack message that contained a password? You should never see it in plain text. That's my personal belief. But it was only an 7 to 8% overlap of number of if the secret is found in one of these systems, it also appears in the code. Meaning there is an entire world of secrets outside of the code base, or, and this is what we got told by several of the customers when we investigated this, those secrets are properly vaulted. Those secrets are properly stored. Why Jira spiked, this is anecdotal evidence, no hard math on this. The story we kept hearing is, oh, that was the engineer trying to be nice to the next person. Instead of picking up from scratch and having to refigure out authentication into the system you're debugging, here's the key. Here's the connection string with, or the connection URL with the authentication string already embedded. Just go ahead and use that. We'll erase the ticket later. Well, unfortunately, kind of like Git, once it's in Jira, once it's in Slack, once it's in all these systems, thanks to caching, thanks to other mechanisms, you can remove them, maybe a little bit easier than your Git history, but they have a tendency to persist in there somewhere in some way, shape, or form. And attackers know how to get after that stuff. So another call to action for everybody out there, if you see a plain text secret, say something. Say, hey, I shouldn't be seeing a plain text secret that can get me into our systems.
Yeah, look, I can fully attest to everything you've said. When we were scanning, clearly the initial focus was our source code repos, but then we had to extend to SharePoint, Jira, Confluence. I guess there was a recent breach, right, in Salesforce, right?
Oh, sales loft, yeah.
Yeah, Salesforce breach, right, where many secrets were stored there as well. So again, it's quite shocking to hear, how broadly secrets are sprawling, across the ecosystem, right?
What an evolution for Salesforce as a quick aside. Like the system they built so your sales guys or sales folks can write down, I had a conversation with a customer, and also I can track where the contract is and what state. Somehow that became a platform where you dumped secrets. Like, what? How did that happen? Like, what evolutionary steps were required for that to happen? It's one of those things when I heard it, it didn't make sense. It's like, what do you mean there were millions of secrets in Salesforce? You mean Salesforce secrets? Like, no, for other systems. It's like, oh, I guess they've been a platform for a long time now. I mean, how else do you build that giant building in San Francisco, I guess? But uh yeah, it, the attack surface has never been bigger, and we're making it bigger continually.
We'll come on to that in a minute. Look, some of the things you said, look, I guess you, Dwayne, we could probably talk about Secrets Sprawl for a whole day. Clearly it's getting bigger as a problem, but fundamentally, fixing it is very hard. Look, yes, we need to move to more modern IM techniques, dynamic ephemeral credentials, just in time, sort of models. Um, but as you said, finding the secrets, fixing them, vaulting them, rotating them, you know, finding all the dependencies, sharing of credentials, and then the thing that everybody hates to do, rotation, right? Because you can't really fix the issue with hard-coded secrets in source code unless you rotate, because you've got your version history. So even though you fix the head of your tree and change the secret, remove it, put it in the vault, your version history still got, and your branches still have the hard-coded secrets, right? So the only way you can properly deal with it is to cycle the password. And we all know cycling is yet a different and more complex challenge, and clearly huge operational risk. Look, as I said, we can talk so much about this topic. Look, I want to now just talk a little bit about, why is this getting worse? Talk a little bit about kind of the AI angle. I know there was some stats again in your report that you can share in a minute. But look, I was playing myself with vibe coding a few weeks ago, and I feel like I've got my mojo back now after not doing coding for many, many years. Just found it so easy and so empowering, and it allowed me to focus on, what matters, right? The design, not really thinking about how to actually physically write the code. I'd never done Python before, and built some pretty nice stuff. But look, I asked three popular LLM tools, right, to recommend some code to, connect using a Chat GPT API key, to connect to WordPress and a MySQL database connection. And to my shock and horror, every one of those tools, basically said, shared the code and basically was encouraging hard-coded secrets in source code. And then when I started to probe and say, look, well, what about security best practices? Then, some recommendations, like you said earlier, use a .m file, which we know is still a terrible answer, and then use a vault, right? So again, it's shocking to me, right, that these tools are kind of encouraging, proliferation of secret sprawl. I did start a small campaign called Stop the Secrets Getting Out on LinkedIn. Maybe together we can kind of collaborate with others and try and maybe put some pressure on some of the tools to, implement sort of secure coding principles, by design. Um, but you did some research on that as well, right? In your status secrets report, what did you find? Um,
There are two specific things we looked at. One in 2024, we looked at markers for using Copilot, GitHub Copilot, and the markers are there. It's not that hard to tell Copilot was involved. There's pretty obvious tells. Uh, we found that it was a slightly higher percentage of repos that use Copilot had leak secrets. It was 6.1%, I believe. Uh, Put me on the spot, numbers off the top of my head, but it was over 6% were leaked a secret if they had Copilot involved versus 4.61% of all repos in public. So
oh,
yes, it was a slight raise. The other more concerning thing to us is 5.5% of all MCP servers we could find. And this was in April. We did this report, and we're revamping these numbers. We're going to be coming out with that as part of our report in March when we do the 2026 Data Secrets Sprawl report. But 5.6% of all MCP servers simply had a working API key that let you connect to whatever platform it was talking to, which kind of horrifying. Like, you're giving me full access to this platform via giving me a way to connect to the platform, but the authentication came with the server. You didn't give it to me. You gave it to the server, which is just conceptually weird to me. Uh, but I think this is true of any technology we touch. We're gonna do it the wrong way at first. And I think we might be getting better at that. I don't have those numbers in front of me as far as MCP itself, but I don't foresee AI making the situation better. But I've actually come to the personal conclusion that it's not going to make it that much worse. I don't see a flood of, I don't see the numbers doubling or tripling. I'll put it that way, based on vibe coding.
Mm.
There's a quote from Phil Venables, the former CISO at Goldman Sachs and Google Cloud. He said it. I think he was quoting someone else too, but I have to go back and rewatch his talk. But the people that benefit most from AI are the people that already are experts in a particular area. Um, Talk about the AI democratizes things. It makes it easier for people to generate software, but it doesn't make them any better at that thing.
Mm.
If they were going to hard code a secret already, they're going to hard code a secret already. If you know not to do that, you're going to look and say, well, that's dumb. Don't do that. So expecting the tool to not be mediocre is the mistake. Expecting it not to act like a junior software developer who's reading template files from 5, 10 years ago, saying, well, that's how my training told me to do it. And it doesn't have a general world model. It's limited in capacity to what it understands, and basically under the covers is just friggin' doing math of vector matching, like how close are these vectors to each other, and what's the next logical thing I should write. The next logical thing it should write, according to its training, is password equals plain text password, because it was trained on the internet. And I don't know if you've seen code on the internet, but it's all over the map, and most of it's terrible.
Dwayne, that's fascinating. Look, I think this is a great segue to maybe sharing a little bit about GitGuardian, and what you do, and how you help organizations tackle kind of the huge NHI problem, the risks around that, including secret sprawl, and I guess, upcoming challenges around AI agents and agentic. So, tell us a bit more about GitGuardian.
Sure. I mentioned it earlier. If you caught the first part of the show, we've been around since 2017 as a company, but 2018 is when we started doing the full-blown public GitHub scanning and that work. So, in a nutshell, we help people figure out where their hard-coded secrets are, and also where their non-hard-coded secrets are. Secret sprawl can't happen publicly unless it happens internally first. We fundamentally believe this. I mean, there are use cases, I guess you could generate it and just throw it into public GitHub, but that doesn't generally happen. Um, but we built a scanner, and we've been refining it over the years with pre-validation, post-validation, to give you very, very high degree of probability. We have the lowest false positives in the industry to say this is a secret, and then give you a full inventory of here's where your leaks are. And then in 2025, we added the ability to connect into your secret managers. So now we partner with CyberArk, Doppler. Um, I don't want to leave anybody out, so I'll just stop naming names. But all
Hashi.
hash, yeah, we thank you, literally Vault. But we have integrations with all of them, and what we do is we safely inside of their environments fingerprint all the secrets, and then that's all we're bringing back. We hash and then take a fingerprint. So we get a partial hash, and all we can do with it is match that same fingerprint by running the same algorithm on any secret we find. So we also, of course, pull metadata. Like it's in this vault. Here's the path. And now we have a full inventory of secrets where they're not supposed to be leaked and where they are supposed to be. And that's the very first rule of threat modeling is you have to have an asset inventory. We are that inventory tool for a lot of large organizations. Now, of course, we do real-time scanning, so we also are alarm bell system that, hey, someone's leaked a secret, you got to react to this. But what we've slowly become over time is that trusted source of truth of, hey, if there's a secret that exists, period, we will know about it. And what we added toward the end of last year, if you look, we had a release update on our releases page on the December 31st, actually. So very end of the year. We now can connect into Okta and Auth0 and we've been able to do AWS IAM for a minute. So all these systems where you're producing your service accounts, Microsoft Entra ID as well, where these service accounts live, if there's a secret involved, we can track from there. So that's how we've gotten into the world of non-human identity, because what we realized fairly early on was the vast majority of these secrets don't go to a person. These are all of the other things,
Mm.
literally the non-humans. So it was a natural transition for us at the end of 2024 to say, well, let's help solve that. Uh, this actually is related to AI very directly, because what are people actually building with AI? Yes, there's a lot of people building a lot of AI right now, and they are building AI systems. But the vast majority of people using AI are building other things than AI. Like your example from earlier, you're connecting together multiple systems.
Mm.
That's what we do with this stuff. We've never been able to do that faster. So the number of entities, the number of workloads, the number of individual IDs that need to exist, or that do exist, keeps going up and up and up exponentially. The number from 2022 that CyberArk famously shared was 45 to 1. That was a guesstimate.
Mm.
They've revised that up to 84 to 1 as of beginning of last year. And talking to their identity teams recently, they admit, like, no, this needs to be revised up again because of agentic AI and how fast this is making everything move now. We've AWS bills have never been higher because we've never put this infrastructure out there. AWS is very happy about this, but they're also almost out of capacity at their data centers, because where else do we store this stuff? Where else do we host this stuff? And every one of those entities, unless you're building with no security in mind whatsoever, every one of those entities needs to establish a connection to another entity in order to get work
Mm.
done. That's the problem. Is these entities, instead of treating them as something with a verifiable long-term ID that it can then trade for a short-term work token, we said, here's a keychain. Good luck. And then hope no one finds the keychain.
Yeah.
It's, in retrospect, we got it really wrong, how we should deal with that authentication piece, and authorization is a whole other piece. But we said,
Mm.
we'll just slam those together, call it a credential, and hope no one finds it. And we've been doing this for so long, but it wasn't really a problem when you had 12 servers inside of your data center, and that was all you had. And it wasn't a problem when you had 100 machines in your data center. And it wasn't a problem when you had virtualization, because again, it's still on your private networks. When cloud happened, oh, the sky's the limit. We can just deploy this everywhere. And how do we reach it? The same URL an attacker can reach it with. And then we watch the explosion. Like literally 100 to 1 is the number we generally throw out. We say at
Mm.
least 100 to 1, and who knows now.
Yeah.
We're almost at the point where we're going to trust agentic systems to build agentic systems, and when that happens, we're going to see an exponential curve. It'll be hockey stick. It will be a wall. I don't know when that day will come. I don't know if it will come, but that's the future I think we're trying to build.
I mean, if you think some of the stats around billions of agents being out there, in terms of digital workforce representing us as humans, scary. Look, one thing I'm keen to understand, again, without giving away any trade secrets, have you been able to use AI in a positive way in terms of how you've been approaching solving the problem, looking at your product, the scanning, how has AI actually helped um, kind of,
No trade secrets here whatsoever. We have blog posts on it. If you go to our documentation and look at how we built the detection engine, it's all there in black and white. We love machine learning. We have for a long time. Uh, there's two big buckets you can throw AI into, in general, and this is oversimplification, but deterministic and generative, deterministic and predictive, or not predictive, sorry, probabilistic.
hmm,
Deterministic systems say, here's the set of rules. Figure out how to best classify things into these rules. We have been building those rules engines for a long time now, for years, and we got really good at it. So ML was able to basically ramp up how fast and how complex those rule sets can be, how fast we can run those rule sets, and then determine new rule sets based on predictive models, the predictive side of AI versus the generative side of AI. Um, so we've really embraced that. So we've just recently introduced a risk score into our product that is ML derived. It looks at various factors, again, against a rule set a human sat down and thought about based on actual customer experience, and says, okay, if these things are true, this is probably going to be a higher risk score. That's number one. We are really, really proud of that ability. But the first use case we actually wrote about, we called it false positive remover.
Hmm.
If a human looks at a weird long character, like 64 characters, and the 64 characters spell out, this is not a password, ignore this, do not hardcode your secrets. That's a very long string. Um, that's a weird long string after password equals, according to a handwritten deterministic rule that password equals in anything is going to be a real thing. You're
Hmm.
going to get a lot of false positives because there are a lot of examples like that in test folders and test files. But given the ability to a machine to say, all right, does this read as an English word? Does this, would this actually be a high entropy thing? It turns out it's really good at doing that really, really quickly. It's not that the deterministic rules and the classic rules engines we've built couldn't do it. It's just it speeds up the process to a point of efficiency that we're really, really proud of.
Yeah, look, I can attest to that again. When we started scanning uh, a few years ago, I learned uh, the false positive challenge and learned about entropy as well and kind of having to tweak that. So it's great to see things have moved on in the last few years and we've got much, much better at detecting secrets and reducing false positives. Um, look, we've clearly had a great discussion so far. The secret sprawl problem's getting worse. AI vibe coding is contributing, like you said, it's not going to stop. It's going to continue to grow. But what can be done about it? I am kind of thinking of like prevent controls. Like, yes, if someone has ended up hard coding, is there kind of capabilities to kind of detect that at check-in time and then, stop, block check-ins if secrets are detected? Are there capabilities like that at GitGuardian or that you're aware of in kind of the industry?
So there's two levels of answer I want to give. The first is the big bright future I see and the conversations that are having now that are bending my brain and like making me rethink certain things. There's a conversation happened recently at an event I was at about moving the transaction or moving the authentication mechanism to the transaction as opposed to the entity.
Mhm.
And we're having that level of conversation finally, that maybe we shouldn't give entities identities permissions at all. Maybe it should be contextually dependent on if it should be allowed to happen based on rule set of we can verify you're you, I can verify I'm me, everybody's happy. Here's the list of things we both said before we started we wanted to do. That
Mhm.
all makes sense. Cool. Let's make the handshake happen. Let's issue the MLTS. And as soon as the handshake stops, let it all just fly away. And the JWT or cert that you gave it blew up in 4 seconds, 10 seconds, a minute, whatever. That's the big bright future I see. We're going to move to workload identity based workload authentication and authorization. I do see that. And I think people need to start thinking in those terms in the big picture. In the short term, in the more pragmatic answer, what can you do today? Very simple. It's not simple to accomplish, I wouldn't say for every organization, but the path is only a few steps. One, find your secrets. If you don't know you have secret sprawl, if you're like, we probably don't leak secrets, you're leaking secrets. Go figure out where those are and then prioritize. All right, which of these are mission critical? Which of these, if an attacker got, would cause us damage? Downtime or an audit event or something bad happens. We would lose money. And then figure out a path to get those into where you can safely store secrets at scale. Those are vaults. At the same time, you have to go talk to your developers and figure out how to improve their lives. So that better path of put the secret in the vault, call it from the vault, is easier than hard coding the secret. That takes work. That takes some engineering. That takes time and patience. But it's going to need to be done. That's why I'm so optimistic about the other path, because you tell the developer, just make the call. Don't worry about it. The infrastructure
Yeah.
team literally handles authentication through Envoy or through some third party, like Ambit comes to mind. CyberArk's building this right now, where the developer just makes a call. Amazon's STS is a really good example. Like, don't worry about secrets. There's a service that does that. Just call the service first and then pass whatever it gives you back into the thing. It does it in real time. Those expire in 5 minutes by default. That's easier than go create an API key, go log into a system, create an API key, and then go log into another system and properly store it. Make sure you get the path right. Don't get the path wrong. And then put that path everywhere. If I'm a developer, one of those sounds a lot easier than the other. So we need to move toward these things that make the developer life easier. Then we can start solving this at scale. But once they're in the vault, once you know those critical systems first are vaulted, they're accounted for in the code, you've refactored, then rotate as fast as you can. If it makes sense every 90 minutes, do that. If it makes sense every day, do that. I think 24 hours is a very long time for a secret to be alive. But the reality right now is secrets by default live forever. So shorten the lifetime of an active secret. Long-lived plain text credentials that carry too many permissions for whoever holds it or grant too many permissions to the holder is the problem. The fact you can see my secrets, if it expired, and even if you could use it, it was read only for one table. In fact, only one column in one table. Fine, you can have that because it's useless to you.
Yeah.
The secret sprawl at that point doesn't really matter. The long-lived, this goes to my mission critical systems. The Toyota example from a few years ago pops to mind, where they left a hard-coded credential in plain text in their public GitHub for over 5 years before a security researcher found it, and it went to 296,000 rows of customer data. Yeah, I want the opposite of that, where there's nothing the developer could have accidentally leaked other than, oh, they're relying on AWS STS to there's security token service to do this. Now I have to hack AWS itself in order to become the attacker in the middle. And that's the world I'm looking at. So find all your secrets, figure out a remediation plan to get them where they're safely stored, rotate them, and then help your developers never hard code a secret again. That's simple in theory, but that's the struggle we're watching so many companies. And that's what we help people do at GitGuardian, is like literally make that plan and have those conversations.
Perfect. I think you ended up answering my final question I was going to ask of you in terms of what advice you'd give to the audience and organizations. But look, just wrapping on that last point about how do we kind of discourage kind of developers from creating secrets, using them. Clearly, vibe coding doesn't help. Like, I think your product and there's others out there, and something we implemented a number of years ago, which was blocking. They use the same scanning technology at kind of check-in time. And if we see a secrets being provided in the source code at check-in time, that the check-in will actually be physically blocked. So I think that's a nice defensive, preventative control, because we know people are going to continue to be creating these secrets. So having something there that can at least detect it, stop the bleeding as well, as we
Yeah,
move to more of the modern techniques, right?
I guess I did kind of gloss over that part. Yes, 100% give guardrails in the meantime to your
Mm,
developers to help them not do that. I think the perfect place for that's actually how I ended up working at GitGuardian. Is I am obsessed with Git hooks and like how Git works under the covers. Personally,
mm,
I'm a geek, but if you can give a developer a Git hook that runs locally, that is non-disruptive, but is a nice guardrail. Say, hey, you forgot you put the secret in here. Here's your chance to fix it, and nobody needs to know except you and me. It doesn't leave this machine. And then that's the point. Then the secret doesn't leave the machine. We actually built a VS Code extension that goes a step farther, and it will flag you have a secret upon save. So before you even do a git add and try to make a commit, and that is the safest place to catch it.
Yeah.
Because you had it on your clipboard, that's already a problem, but that's a very specific, very hard attack path to get it out of your clipboard. Once you've pasted it somewhere, again, it's not really a problem. You just saved it, but once you get it to the index, now we're in more dangerous territory. Once you've done the commit, oh, now it's very dangerous. Once you push it from the machine, now you've leaked a secret. Congratulations. So catch it as early as humanly possible.
Okay. Thanks, Dwayne. Look, for joining Mr NHI on our Non-Human and AI Identity podcast show. I feel like I just want to keep chatting to you
Me too.
about this topic. We could have a whole conference on Secrets Sprawl. Anything else you want to share in terms of closing thoughts? How can people learn more about yourself and GitGuardian? Where do they go?
Well, the easiest place to do or place to go is just getguardian.com. I would highly recommend checking out our blog. We are not an AI slop shop. We handwrite all of our blogs ourselves, and my research team is fantastic. Shout out to Guillaume and Gaetan, who are just writing inspirational stuff, then doing deep research. So I would start there, honestly, if you're trying to learn about GitGuardian, the company, and our mindset and what we're doing. But if you just want to get started with GitGuardian, it's free to get started. It's free for individual developers forever, and the developer tools are real good. I love our CLI. I could be biased, but I do love our CLI. And we have a pretty active YouTube channel. So we have all sorts of helpful videos there to help you along your way.
Great. Well, look, I hope folks really enjoyed this episode as much as I did. We've got more great content coming in the next few weeks. So please subscribe and enjoy the show. You'll find us on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And also visit nhimg.org, where we have the most comprehensive knowledge center on NHIs, over 2,000 articles, research blogs, educational videos, and forums, and many events. And also, if you want to get further educated on how to govern, manage, and secure NHIs, visit nhitraining.org for the most comprehensive and only accredited training course in the industry. All right, thanks, Dwayne. It was great chatting. Bye.
Great talking to you. Bye bye.